953 graves. That is the number an 1850 survey counted along a single corridor of Nevada desert, in the stretch where the California Immigrant Trail crossed 40 miles of waterless alkali flats between the Humboldt Sink and the Carson River. Nearly 5,000 horses died in that corridor, over 1,000 mules, more than 3,700 cattle. The immigrants called it the most dreaded section of the entire westward journey, and they were not exaggerating. They crossed it at night when they could, because the daytime heat killed faster than the distance. In his diary, an immigrant named John Wood captured the mood before the crossing. Hundreds of travelers already lamenting their anticipated death and suffering on the burning plain. The trail is gone now. The wagon ruts have been buried under asphalt or scattered by wind. But the road that replaced the trail is still there, still crossing the same terrain, and the terrain has not changed its terms. Today that road is US Route 50. In July 1986, Life magazine called it the loneliest road in America. The article warned readers not to attempt the drive without survival skills. The name was intended as a criticism. Nevada seized it as a marketing slogan, printing survival certificates for travelers who collected stamps in the few small towns along the route. The word survival was presented as a dare, a piece of adventure branding. The desert did not receive it that way. As of mid-July 2026, the Nevada Highway Patrol's Northern Command has investigated 29 fatal crashes, resulting in 33 fatalities for the year, and the year is barely past its midpoint. The name on the brochure says lonely. The record says something else entirely. Between Fallon and the Utah border, US Route 50 crosses more than 400 miles of what geologists call the Basin and Range Province of the Great Basin, a unique geological area where no water ever reaches the ocean. Rivers begin, run, and go underground. They may surface briefly and then vanish again into the earth. The Great Basin is not a single valley, but a corrugated landscape of dozens of long desert valleys, separated by mountain ranges that rise thousands of feet above the basin floors, one after another, like waves frozen in stone. The road has to cross all of them. It climbs over 17 named mountain passes, some requiring drivers to navigate steep 8% grades and hairpin turns through pine forests to reach elevations above 7,000 feet, then descends into long desert valleys and does it again. And again. Between Fallon and Ely, a span of 287 miles, there are 3 towns: Austin, Eureka, and Ely. They are separated by 70 to 110 miles of open terrain. That 287-mile span is roughly the same distance as Boston, Massachusetts, to Baltimore, Maryland. Except there is no Boston and no Baltimore. There is the road, and there is everything the road is not. Leaving Fallon, home to the Naval Air Station. Fallon, the highway narrows from 4 lanes to 2. The median disappears. The shoulders thin. The cell towers vanish. The Nevada Highway Patrol has acknowledged this in public reporting. Their own troopers lose radio and cellular signal on parts of US Route 50. One Nevada Highway Patrol beat stretches nearly 500 miles across this territory. A trooper who encounters a crash in a coverage dead zone may need to drive dozens of miles just to reach a tower and call dispatch, eating up time that could mean the difference between life and death for someone bleeding on the roadside. Summer temperatures along the route regularly exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Pavement surface temperatures climb significantly higher, enough to accelerate tire degradation and cause blowouts on vehicles with underinflated or worn rubber. The extreme heat also drains car batteries faster than drivers expect, accelerates coolant evaporation, and can cause engine overheating in vehicles that are not prepared for sustained high-temperature operation. A car that breaks down in this corridor in July is not an inconvenience, it is an emergency. The body loses water faster than most people realize in dry desert heat, and the onset of heat exhaustion can be sudden. In winter, the mountain passes collect snow and black ice without warning. The posted speed limit on the open stretches runs as high as 70 miles per hour, and drivers routinely exceed it because there is nothing in the landscape to suggest they should slow down. No buildings, no intersections, no pedestrians, no visual complexity of any kind. That is the trap. The emptiness that makes this road beautiful is the same emptiness that makes it lethal. The long, straight valleys, the unchanging horizon, the hypnotic repetition of basin and range, train the brain to stop paying attention. Neurologists have a clinical name for what happens next. It is called highway hypnosis, and this road is one of the purest laboratories for it on Earth. The single most dangerous stretch of US Route 50 is not the one that looks dangerous. It is not a mountain pass in a snowstorm or a hairpin curve carved into a canyon wall. It is the flat, straight, sunlit valley floor where the road runs true for miles, and the driver's brain decides that nothing is happening. Highway hypnosis is the state in which a driver's eyes remain open and pointed forward while the brain stops processing the road in real time. During normal, alert driving, the visual system actively takes in new information on a continuous basis. Lane markings shifting, shadows moving, other vehicles appearing and receding. The brain uses this live input to make constant micro-corrections. During highway hypnosis, the brain flips the balance. Instead of relying on what the eyes are actually seeing, the oculomotor system begins depending on internal mental maps and stored motor programs. The driver is navigating from memory rather than from live visual input. This shift registers on brain scans as measurable changes in alpha and theta wave activity. The driver is not asleep. The driver is upright, steering, maintaining lane position and speed. But the capacity to react to the unexpected, a drift, a deer, an oncoming vehicle that has crossed the center line, degrades severely because the brain has stopped monitoring for it. The condition slides easily into drowsy driving, and the two reinforce each other. The National Safety Council has estimated that driving after more than 20 hours without sleep impairs performance to the same degree as a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08%, the legal limit in every state. But highway hypnosis does not require sleep deprivation. It can happen to a well-rested driver on a monotonous road. The trigger is environmental, cognitive underload, a brain with too little to process, seeking its own idle state. The NHTSA reported that drowsy driving contributed to an estimated 91,000 police-reported crashes nationally in 2017, resulting in roughly 50,000 injuries and nearly 800 deaths. By 2023, drowsy driving was linked to 633 fatalities. Experts consider all these figures conservative because fatigue is difficult to identify after a crash and is systematically underreported. On US 50, the conditions that produce highway hypnosis are not occasional hazards. They are the road's default state, mile after mile of identical terrain, minimal traffic, no visual complexity to keep the brain engaged, the hum of the engine, the rhythm of tires on pavement grooves. At 75 miles per hour, a 2-second lapse in attention covers 220 feet. On a 2-lane road with oncoming traffic in the adjacent lane and no median barrier, 220 feet is the margin between a correction and a head-on collision. A fully loaded semi-truck traveling at highway speed needs approximately 600 feet to come to a complete stop. And if the collision happens in the remote stretch, the compounding begins. No cell signal to call 911. No hospital for 100 miles in either direction. No shade if the car is disabled, and the occupants must wait for help that may not know they need it. Ambient air temperatures of 100 degrees push ground-level temperatures past 150. The body begins losing water it cannot replace. Judgment deteriorates before thirst fully registers. The mechanism alone would be survivable on a divided highway, with guardrails and cellular coverage, and a trauma center 30 minutes away. On US 50, the mechanism meets a landscape that has no interest in forgiveness, and every small lapse compounds into something the driver cannot come back from. On Wednesday, July 10, 2013, at approximately 3:31 in the afternoon, a white Ford F-150 pickup truck was traveling eastbound on US Route 50, 5 miles east of Dayton, near the intersection with 6 Mile Canyon Road. The weather was clear. The road was dry. The driver was Ellis Lee Irwin, 73 years old, a resident of Dayton. His wife, Louise Kai. Irwin, 72, sat in the passenger seat. For reasons the investigation never established, the Ford drifted across the double yellow center line into the westbound travel lane. Coming the other direction was a white Toyota Camry. The driver was Michelle Marie Stratton, 43 years old, also from the Dayton Valley area. She was the sole occupant. The Ford struck the Camry head-on. Ellis Irwin was pronounced dead at the scene. Louise Irwin was pronounced dead at the scene. Michelle Stratton was pronounced dead at the scene. 3 people. 2 vehicles. 1 drift across a painted line on a clear Wednesday afternoon. No impairment was cited in the preliminary investigation. No mechanical failure reported. NHP Trooper Dan Lopez confirmed the details. Irwin's pickup drifted into oncoming traffic for unknown reasons. The investigation was handled by Trooper Doug Hildebrand of the Major Accident Investigation Team. Public safety personnel closed the westbound lanes and diverted traffic onto the dirt shoulder. 1 eastbound lane remained open, reduced to single file. The highway did not fully reopen until approximately 9 o'clock that evening, nearly 6 hours after 3 people from the same community died on it. The ordinariness is the point. Ellis and Louise Irwin were a married couple in their 70s, traveling together on a local road on a weekday afternoon. Stratton was driving alone, heading west, on the same road. These were not tourists unfamiliar with the route. These were not thrill seekers or impaired drivers or people who had made obviously reckless choices. They were residents. The road was theirs. And the road's geometry turned a single moment of inattention into a collision with no survivable outcome, because between Irwin's lane and Stratton's lane, there was nothing. No concrete barrier, no cable median, no rumble strip, just paint. The intersection where they died, 6 Mile Canyon Road, would appear in crash reports again in the years that followed. In 2023, a 49-year-old woman named Alina Persh was struck and killed by a semi-truck while crossing US Route 50 at that same intersection. The road did not change between those deaths. It did not need to change. It was already configured to produce exactly this result. Frances Fields was 74 years old and from Ely, Nevada, and on July 31st, 2022, she was driving east on US Route 50 in a gold Ford Fusion, heading home. The stretch of road she was on sits 24 miles west of Eureka, deep in the 2-lane corridor where the highway crosses Lander and Eureka counties, with nothing between the towns but sagebrush, alkali flats, and the occasional gravel ranch road. It was shortly before 11 o'clock in the morning. A tractor-trailer rig was heading west, and behind the semi, a blue Mazda hatchback was following. The driver of the Mazda decided to pass. The Mazda veered into the eastbound lane, directly into the path of Fields' Ford. The collision was head-on. Fields was pronounced dead at the scene by medical personnel. The driver of the Mazda sustained what the Nevada State Police described as suspected minor injuries. The passenger in the Mazda reported no injuries at all. The Nevada State Police press release described the sequence without commentary. The Mazda driver veered into the eastbound travel lane, attempting to pass the slower-moving truck, right into the path of the Ford. The impact diverted both vehicles off the roadway. The Mazda overturned. The road was 2 lanes. There was no passing lane, no turnout, no climbing lane, no infrastructure to separate a driver's impatience from an oncoming car. The semi-truck was simply too slow for the driver behind it. and the only way to get around it was to bet that the oncoming lane was empty. It was not. This is the second form of the mechanism. The first is the drift, the Irwin Stratton crash. The second is the failed pass. On a two-lane highway, shared with commercial trucks that travel below the speed limit, on grades, faster drivers stack up behind semis with no way to see past them. The decision to pass is a calculation made on incomplete information because the truck blocks the view of what is coming. When the gamble fails, the closing speed of two vehicles approaching each other head-on can exceed 140 miles per hour. At that speed, no seatbelt, no airbag, no vehicle design can guarantee survival. The pattern extends to the western, improved section of US Route 50, where the road has been widened to 4 lanes and fitted with traffic signals, barrier rail, and modern intersection design. On the morning of Sunday, June 28, 2026, at approximately 7:14 a.m., a married couple from Dayton named Sergio Villanueva III, 55, and Jennifer Villanueva, 49, were in a white Volkswagen Beetle heading westbound on US Route 50 in Dayton, approaching the intersection with Traditions Parkway. A red Toyota RAV4 was stopped at the traffic light in the left westbound lane. The Beetle was approaching in the right lane. Behind the Beetle, also in the right lane, a white Tesla semi-truck with an attached trailer was traveling in the same direction. The driver of the semi-truck did not decrease speed as the Beetle slowed for the intersection. The semi struck the Beetle from behind. The impact drove the Beetle forward. The semi entered the left lane and struck the stopped RAV4. Sergio Villanueva III was pronounced dead at the scene. Jennifer Villanueva was pronounced dead at the scene. The driver of the RAV4 was extricated by Central Lyon County Fire Department personnel and airlifted by Care Flight helicopter to a regional hospital with serious injuries. The semi-truck driver reported no injuries from the collision. Investigators stated that the driver of the semi may have fallen asleep. The Tesla Semi, an electric Class 8 truck produced at the nearby Gigafactory, Nevada, located near Sparks, was confirmed as the vehicle involved, marking the first known fatal crash involving that model. The crash shut down US Route 50 in both directions. Personnel from the Nevada State Police, Central Lyon County Fire Department, and the Nevada Department of Transportation responded. The highway remained closed for hours while investigators processed the scene. A married couple from Dayton, on a Sunday morning, on their own road, at a red light. They had done everything a driver is supposed to do. They were obeying the signal, and the mechanism found them anyway, not through the road's geometry this time, but through the same underlying engine, fatigue, monotony, a driver whose brain stopped attending to what was in front of the vehicle. The Nevada Department of Transportation spent roughly $50 million over the past decade widening US Route 50 from 2 lanes to 4 between eastern Dayton and Silver Springs. Even on the improved stretch, the mechanism adapts. The NHP, Northern Command's year-to-date count as of mid-July 2026 was 29 fatal crashes and 33 fatalities. Across the full length of US Route 50 in Nevada, the numbers assemble into a pattern that individual crash reports cannot convey. Nevada recorded more than 400 traffic deaths in 2024, a rise of nearly 6% over the prior year. The state's own data, drawn from federal FARS reporting, shows the rural fatality rate at more than double the urban rate, 2.14 deaths per 100 million vehicle miles traveled on rural roads versus 1.02 in urban areas. Nationally, the rural fatality rate is 1.5 times higher than the urban rate, and that ratio has held for a full decade. 33% of Nevada's motor vehicle traffic fatalities occur in rural areas, despite those areas carrying a small fraction of the state's total traffic volume. The counties along US 50's remote stretch, Churchill, Lander, Eureka, and White Pine, are among the least populated in Nevada, but their crash rate per vehicle mile traveled belongs to a different scale entirely. The road is the variable. 2 lanes, no median barrier, speed limits of 70 miles per hour, distances between emergency services measured in hours rather than minutes, and a visual environment that produces the exact cognitive state most likely to end in a drift or a failed pass. NDOT's institutional response has been genuine, expensive, and geographically limited. The Dayton to Silver Springs widening, completed in phases by Granite Construction Company, converted the highway from 2 to 4 lanes across approximately 14 miles and added 14 miles of 4-strand livestock fencing on both sides of the road to reduce animal vehicle collisions. The section serves approximately 6,000 drivers daily. The newer US 50 east of Dayton Preservation Project, with construction beginning in summer 2026, will install traffic signals at Cardelli Road and Riverboat Road, and at 6 Mile Canyon Road and Fort Churchill Road, the intersection where the Irwins and Michelle Stratton died in 2013. The speed limit on that stretch will drop from 60 to 55 miles per hour. Medians will be installed at intersections for access control. High T intersection designs will manage turns from side streets onto the highway. Throughout the corridor, older guardrail has been upgraded to heavier concrete barrier rail designed to reduce crossover crashes, and centerline rumble strips have been placed in select areas to alert drifting drivers. Each intervention addresses a documented failure mode. Each costs millions, and each one stops where the population stops. East of Fallon, where the road narrows to 2 lanes and the towns disappear, the highway remains what it has been since the Lincoln Highway Association first mapped it in 1913. A single thread of pavement crossing a landscape that does not care whether anyone is on it. The NHP troopers who patrol this stretch carry satellite-based communication equipment because their standard radios cannot reach dispatch from the valley floors. A trooper encountering a crash in the middle of the remote stretch with an injured person who needs a helicopter may need to drive to higher ground or to the outskirts of the nearest town to get a signal. The $50 million invested in the Western Corridor is not a comfort. It is an accounting of how dangerous the road was before the spending began. And the 287-mile stretch that generated the danger, the stretch that Life magazine warned about in 1986, has not received a proportionate investment. On June 14, 2026, at approximately 8:32 in the morning, a 68-year-old man named James Chapman from Carson City was riding a black Harley-Davidson tricycle westbound on US Route 50 near Lander County mile marker 27. That is 3 miles east of Austin, in the heart of the lonely stretch. An adult female passenger rode behind him. The road curves to the right at that point, one of the mountain pass transitions where the highway bends through a notch between basins. Chapman failed to negotiate the curve. The tricycle crossed the center line, left the roadway to the left, launched off a dirt embankment, traveled down a steep ravine, overturned, and came to rest on its back, facing east. Chapman sustained fatal injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene by medical personnel. His passenger was transported to a regional hospital where she was admitted to the intensive care unit with serious injuries. The NHP Major Incident Reconstruction Team opened the investigation. 3 miles from Austin, the nearest town. And nearest means something different on US Route 50 than it does elsewhere. Austin's population is roughly 200 people. Its medical resources are minimal. No trauma center, no hospital. The nearest facility capable of treating the passenger's injuries was more than 100 miles away. A missed curve, a dirt embankment, a ravine. No guardrail, no runoff area, no margin. The landscape offered exactly what it has always offered on this road, nothing between the mistake and the ground. The road is open today. It was open yesterday. It will be open tomorrow morning when someone leaves Fallon heading east with a full tank, a playlist, and the reasonable assumption that a paved highway in the United States is a safe place to be. East of Fallon, the driver will pass the ancient petroglyphs at Grimes Point. Then Sand Mountain, a 600-foot dune formed 9,000 years ago from the dry bed of Lake Lahontan. The dune rises from the desert floor like something that does not belong there, golden against the gray-brown basin. And then the landscape will simplify. The road will narrow. The phone will lose its signal somewhere east of the Sand Mountain turnoff. It may recover briefly in Austin, depending on the carrier. It will drop again between Austin and Eureka, and again between Eureka and Ely. The I-Survived Highway 50 passport is still available from the Nevada Commission on Tourism. Travelers collect stamps at designated stops along the route. The passport proves you were there. It does not prove you were prepared. In a survey of 3,000 road trippers, U.S. Route 50 through Nevada was ranked the 5th most feared road in America for potential vehicle breakdowns, behind only routes in New Mexico, Death Valley, Texas, and Hawaii. The fear is not irrational. The isolation of the route also concentrates wildlife collisions. Deer, coyotes, and wild horses are common on the road, especially at dusk and dawn, and hitting a large animal at 70 miles per hour on a road with no shoulder and no cell service compounds into a crisis faster than most drivers are prepared to handle. Near Silver Springs, where U.S. Route 50 passes through the terrain that once formed the southern edge of the 40-mile desert, a Nevada historical marker still stands beside the road. The text records the 1850 survey in plain language. 953 graves, almost 5,000 horses, 3,750 cattle, over 1,000 mules. The value of personal property lost was set at the time at $1 million. The heaviest traffic on the Immigrant Trail came between 1849 and 1869. Those travelers knew the desert was trying to kill them because the evidence lined the trail. Dead animals swelling in the heat, abandoned wagons stripped for parts, and the graves of the people who had come before. The warning was physical. It was everywhere. Today, the road is paved, the car has climate control, and the navigation screen shows a clean blue line running east to the destination. The warning is not visible. That is the danger on U.S. Route 50. Not that it looks dangerous, not that it frightens the driver into caution, but that it looks like nothing at all. A tourism campaign, a survival certificate, a brochure. The desert has not changed its terms since the 1850 survey counted its dead. It has only changed the confidence with which people enter it. And confidence on this road is the last link in the chain.